Welcome to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior and Community Center. I'm Reed Price, and with me today, some folks who are going to talk about Devotion to Democracy, an upcoming community event about democracy and faith. And we'll get to that in just a minute. Before we do, though, I want to acknowledge that we are meeting on the ancestral homeland of the Salish Sea people, the Suquamish tribe, who have been living on the shores of the Salish since time immemorial. We honor the people of the clear salt water, and we are learning from their stewardship how to be better stewards ourselves of these lands and waters. A vow we should take every morning and every night. Also, I'd like to thank Fieldstone Communities of Bainbridge Island for being a sponsor of Something to Talk About. They help underwrite these programs as a sponsor of the Senior and Community Center. Fieldstone has independent living, assisted living, and memory care. They're up on Rolling Bay. You can take a tour. They'd love to give you a tour. Call Sierra Wood or Randy O'Neill at 206-594-1010. And you can check them out online at fieldstonecommunities.com. With us today, we have John Kidd, and he's been involved in this democracy discussion for a while. And Mike Kelly, who's been involved in climate issues, and I think also helping out with the work on democracy on Bainbridge Island, and Robert Harris from the NAACP. And I think Robert, you are going to be talking at the event as well. Is that right?
That is correct. Yes.
And then you're going to have Minister Mark Travis from Eagle Harbor. And who's your third speaker, John?
Oh, Ben Trong, who is the national field manager for Common Power. So she's probably one of the best people we could get nationally to talk about where people from Bainbridge can go to do doorbelling and to do contact that'll make a difference in flipping the House and Senate.
So the goal of this meeting, which is June 27th, and it's hosted up at Grace Church off Day Road, is to talk about the idea of what we can do and how we can work to uh, make sure that democracy and representative democracy is the way that we resume or continue to operate as a country. The thing is sponsored by Third Act Washington and Standing Together Bainbridge Island, which is kind of a grassroots organization. Which, Mike, I think you're involved with Standing Together. Is that right?
That's right. John has been the sort of convener and chair of this effectively. He's been the main organizer and bringing a group of us together, and I've been working with John since last year on it.
So, Robert, since you're one of the folks who are actually going to be presenting, can you give us a little clue of what you expect we might be able to learn or work on together in this upcoming discussion of democracy and faith?
Absolutely. And again, thank you for having me. Again, my name is Robert Harris. I'm the president of the NAACP Bremerton branch. We represent Jefferson Mason Kitsap County. And what I did was I just kind of put together like a 12 point action plan. And I'll just kind of highlight the things that I put together. Item one was launching a community redistricting education campaign. Two, build a rapid response voter protection team. Mobilize a Protect Black History and Parent Educator Network. Four, coordinating a legislative pressure week, strengthening NAACP membership and community partnerships. Number six, creating a local Black History preservation project. Host youth civic leadership labs. Eight, developing a community accountability scorecard. Organize public forums and town halls on democracy and celebrating Black History year-round is number 10. And then 11 is donating to the NAACP Bremerton office and the NAACP National. And 12 is volunteer support for the mission of the NAACP. And I could go into the subcomponents of each one of those things, but those are just kind of high clip of the things I'm going to talk about. That'll be the topics for my speech that'll be coming up.
Great. Yeah, it looks like, there are a lot of things there that are opportunities to sort of work forward on. And as you work on some of these, in addition to whatever comes out of the meeting, we would love to have you flag us at the community center, I'd love to let people know about how um, things like parent education, voter response, and well, all of the points you made are moving forward because I feel like there are a lot of things and efforts that we are doing. Sometimes it feels like they don't amount to much, but they do add up. Maybe Mike, you could talk a little bit about that kind of additive value of a number of people doing small actions.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a little bit like what we experience with climate, where a lot of people are concerned, but they don't know what they can do. They're not sure what specific actions they can take. And I think Robert did a great job of kind of laying out a variety of things from direct action to education to giving money, which is also valuable. And I would add to that sharing with your own network, growing the network so that people see that their friends and the people they respect and know are involved in this and trying to take action. So, and that's where we are going to have as part of this, we're going to have the speakers, but we're also going to do a few breakouts on specific topics. And in that, we're going to focus really much on how much what can people specifically do here in Kitsap and on Bainbridge in doing, kind of taking action here to help support our democracy by basically acting the way people in a democracy act, which is to take action.
Yeah, and one of the things that people have felt is that, uh, they've been showing up for protests or rallies, depending on your point of view, but going out onto the streets to say, hey, I see that things are not going the way I think they should, and I'm going to show up for my neighbors. But then they feel like, okay, so how did that change anything? And that list that you shared with us, Robert, are some very specific things that I think are additive to the idea of showing up in the street. There's a great deal of encouragement we get when we see each other out, saying to our neighbors, "Yeah, this is not good." And I not only am here on Bainbridge, but also I often spend time up in the North Cascades. And when I see groups of people in communities like Twisp who are showing up every weekend to hold signs, I think, yeah, this is not a, isolated concern. This is a concern that's shared by people across the traditional, political spectrum.
Right. That's been one big push from the NAACP national and us at the local level is doing more collaboration with other like-minded organizations here in Kitsap, Mason, and Jefferson County. So we've been trying to do a lot of outreach to see how we can do a better job of collaborating with those organizations since there are so many things that we need to address. No, both at the federal level, moving all the way down to the state and local levels.
So, John, would you be willing to talk a little bit about the connection with faith? It's called Devotion to Democracy is the name of this little presentation, and it is at a church. It's being held at Grace Church, and also present will be a faith leader, a local minister. So, kind of draw the line for us on that.
Yeah. So the beginning issue is a very basic one, is that the values fundamental to our democracy are also fundamental to our faiths. Truthfulness, factuality, treating, caring for your neighbor as yourself, and decency, care, championing the rights of the least of these. And that marriage has kind of gotten lost for some reason in recent years. And the church is kind of the sort of progressive church has run away in many ways, kind of not addressed issues, whereby we have a conservative church that's now in the government. And it's saying that very clearly, verbatim, that the only thing that matters is Christianity, no other religion should be followed, and so on and so forth, and that only white people can be favored. So we have I think, a return of a kind of a civil rights moment, a return of the abolitionist moment, where the churches step up and say, we have a fundamental duty to to defend our faith values and resist anything that gets in the way of that in a loving fashion, not a combative fashion, and build bridges of understanding and repair the breach. and all that stuff. So that's part of the chemistry. It is great to march, but we have to do things additional to that. We have to do things like recognizing that the senior center is a vessel of democracy creation. All those little things you do are essential to democracy. You know, democracy is like family. If we all don't practice it, the families are going to fail, right? So we have to kind of step up and see that all of these threads, if tied together, we can actually resuscitate our capacity to practice democracy. Right now, we sort of outsource it and say, oh, the politicians are doing it, and then we blame them when we're really blaming ourselves. And so we just want to do a reset, and we feel like Bainbridge is one of those exemplary communities where we could do a major reset and recover a lot of the democracy we've lost and start here and then build. And if we can become a viable paradigm, then people may emulate it.
So you said, but this is the second in a maybe
Yep.
a series, but the second
Yep.
time you've sort of um, entered this conversation with
Right.
Grace as the location, and you got a good turnout last time, and you said that some of the people who showed up, did not identify with a particular faith, religious tradition, but showed up anyway. Can you talk a little bit about how this is um, faith may be broadly described?
Yeah, I think my theory, it's not a theory, I think it's a practice. Central to many faiths, and particularly Christianity, is the idea of a beloved community. And and to accept for people for who they are. You bring in a stranger, they don't have to agree with your beliefs if they agree, if they practice the same values. So the first round, what we try to do is just explore what is the faith basis for being political. And there's a whole lot of stuff out there that if you're political, you can't be, practicing as a church, which is just simply not true. And so we tried to find a way to, create foundations for that. And so on this one, we're doing step number 2, which is now that you know you have the power to act and you have a basis to act, what do you want to do? So our question this time is very central. Um, what am I called to do and with whom? Okay, so that's, really key going forward for the folks, and we're going to try to give them a lot of opportunity. So it's not just the doing, it's finding a community and doing it, and how can we weave all of that together in a fashion that's functional, and helping us move forward. And it was
And I
fun.
know, Mike, you've done a lot of organizing, and probably you have too, Robert. So what kinds of things are there that sort of are the next steps for people who are sort of using their democracy, their citizenship muscle for the first time, or at least for the first time in a long time?
Go ahead,
My
Robert.
Oh, I would say it's really just getting people engaged and getting off the sidelines and laying out a plan of action for them. I think a lot of people they go to meetings and then they walk away and then they don't have any tools to act upon and it's not an action plan. So I think for us as organizations, we got to start putting tools in the hands of our community members to say, hey, call your senators, call your legislators, make sure that you and your neighbors register to vote, make sure they have the correct information in their hands so they can vote accordingly, whatever lines up with their best interests, so I think arming people with the correct political information and information about, why they should be voting, what issues are important to the community, those are some of the things that we should be doing, and just getting people engaged, and getting them so that they can get off the sideline and not just walking away from these meetings and say, well, great meeting, but what's the action thereafter? So, that's what we really want to start doing, from my standpoint.
You
And that's where I
mentioned.
think,
Oh, go
sorry, go
ahead.
ahead.
Go ahead, Mike.
Well, in the breakouts, I think we are going to have a sort of menu of options for people everywhere from, hey, there's postcarding that happens at TNC every Wednesday at noon. Come spend an hour and write some postcards to voters in other states, to phone calling voters in other states, to giving money to support those activities, to, as you mentioned, Reed, the protest that happens over at 305 and Winslow regularly that I think adds kind of to a community sense of, hey, there are people engaged here and maybe makes people. So we're going to have a whole menu of options for folks to get engaged, and we do see November as a particularly important time.
And I think there are some issues. I think it was you, Robert, who mentioned redistricting is number one, is one of the things that you're looking at. I know that there's been a lot of discussion nationally, and even it's come up in our legislature about sort of how we draw uh, the district lines.
Mhm.
And I guess that you know, there are probably a variety of views about that, whether we're going to use our districting as a weapon, or we're going to try to move to uh, sort of a non-political districting. Those are questions that we as citizens can ask, right?
Yes, those are questions that you can definitely ask. And then for us, from an NAACP standpoint, I mean, one thing that we are hoping to do is maybe work on developing some workshops on explaining how gerrymandering actually works, no, against the community and how it dilutes the votes of communities of colors. And so we're hoping to be able to maybe work together with maybe our state area conference and start developing some of those programs. So again, this is again just goes back to getting that information into the hands of the people and getting them engaged with a plan of action.
Right. So this would be like if that is something that speaks to you, you might
Hmm.
be able to make a connection at this event and figure out where you can take the next step to support people who are working on it, or actually take action yourself to go meet with lawmakers or others to try to influence the future of our common group. Another one I know there's an effort to try to change the requirements on how to vote in Washington State. I think there's an initiative that's maybe it's just a potential initiative. Can you tell me anything about that?
I've just seen some high clip information. Looks like it is a similar to kind of like the SAVE Act that they were trying to enact, from the federal level. But it sounds like they are hoping to put in some additional barriers to prevent our community members from voting. So if you don't have certain identification or requires certain identifications to vote, like a passport, which a lot of people don't have today. So that would again 10 would be a hindrance to a lot of our community members if they go down and try to vote. And
Yeah,
also,
you can see if you went through the real ID process, how
exactly,
complicated it can be.
exactly.
Yeah, I think there's also an initiative for ranked choice voting here, but it's not a big initiative. And it's an intelligent thing to consider because it gets around a lot of those problems.
And maybe, maybe one of the things that people might be able to learn about are where to go to learn about these things. I know that I spend a lot of time reading uh, newspaper, well, whatever you call them now, news organizations like the Washington State Standard, which is a nonprofit web play organization that publishes a lot of information out of Olympia, which it's harder to find in the Seattle Times and the Kitsap Sun than it used to be. So I appreciate that. Um, any other? Oh yes, Susan is here and
Well,
has
I
a
just,
comment.
I think all of us have gray hair on the show today, except for you, Robert. I don't see any
I don't
gray hair.
know. Check out his beard.
Oh, okay. But I think the young people, like I have a neighbor, she's about 22, and she asks me, how should I vote? What would I do? And I said, I'm not going to tell you how to vote, but may I recommend that you explore the Democrats, the Republicans, the independents, go online, reach out, find out what all these people are talking about and what they want to do, what their proposals are. Then you can make an educated vote. And she was like, her mouth, she was like shocked. And I said, yeah, you just go online and you can do that. So I think getting our young people involved, what do you have to be 18, 21 to vote these days? Get
18.
them involved,
18.
get them reading, get them thinking, and asking us old people, for recommendations, perhaps, but helping them get into the process because I think we've lost a lot of that. I don't think a lot of young people are engaged, and maybe if I'm wrong, please speak up.
No, I think you're absolutely right. During our Juneteenth festival that we had over the weekend, we had a lot of young people come by our community information booth, and we were able to give them flyers and give them information about voting. And also, a lot of young people were in that 17 going to be ready to vote, next year. Give them information so they can get pre-registered to vote. So we gave out a ton of that information, over the past weekend. And one thing that we try to do we put out a weekly newsletter as well. And in that newsletter, we have a contact or a link you can contact your federal legislators, your state and local representatives as well. So, and that also gets them to the information where they can learn about those issues. So we try to make it as it's easy to access as possible.
That sounds good. Yeah.
One thing to follow on that perhaps is just we as elders are a huge untapped resource.
Mhm.
And so Third Act and other groups nationally are on a campaign to empower elders to retire into saving democracy and saving the climate and saving a possibly decent future for our grandkids. And when you get a group of people together, that can really galvanize elders into having a sense of agency and not being kind of exiled, and to become central to the fabric of community. And we're finding, at least, that that's an attractive thing. We've gone from 100 members 2 years ago to well over 1,500. That's a pretty big leap.
So I just want to remind people the event is actually June 27th at Grace Church, and the time for the meeting is
1 o'clock.
1 o'clock,
Goes from one
and
to three.
1 to 3.
And then there's a coffee hour after, so you can talk more with people you might want to work with.
Okay, and it sounds like there'll be presentations, coffee hour, and there'll be breakout groups, right, Mike?
Correct.
Yeah.
Sounds like you're helping with a breakout group. And we'll hear from Common Power, the NAACP Bremerton, which is naacpbremerton.org, and from a minister from Eagle Harbor Congregational UCC.
Yep.
And if I could just add one, Reed, for people who want more information, we have a website, of course, because everyone does these days. Standing Together BI, all one word, standingtogetherbi.org. And there's more information about the page there. And people also can register. It's not required to register for the event, but if you register, we'll send you a reminder. And we also have some advanced materials we'll send you. We will also be broadcasting it on Zoom, so you can get a Zoom link that way if you can't make it to the event. So check out standingtogetherbi.org.
Thank you for adding that. Okay, and thank you all for spending the time with me today. I really appreciate learning about the wonderful program, and thank you, Susan, for dropping in, and Patricia for dropping in as well. We'll talk to you. We'll talk to you soon.
Take care. Thanks again. Great job.